In September 2013, our area was devastated by floodwaters. Thousands of people were displaced from their homes. Hundreds of miles of roads and numerous bridges were damaged. Commercial businesses and our agricultural community were adversely impacted. Join us as we look back at the days prior to the flooding, the immediate response, and the recovery efforts.
I'm Roy Rudisell. I'm the emergency manager for Will County. Some of the things that we do within emergency management, we knew that the storms were coming earlier in that week. We had had a lot of information working with the National Weather Service, the other emergency managers in our region, and then also just getting information from our first responders. Early Thursday morning, the southwest part of our county was already dealing with the flood issues. We had a conference call, myself and our county commissioners, and identified based on what the additional weather reports were and how the water was rising in the rivers down the south part of the county, that we activated our EOC at that time.
We're made aware of the flood, quite frankly, several days before it actually hit Greeley. So we had already began the process of setting up our emergency operations centers to prepare for what might be, coming our way.
Friday the 13th of 2013, I had come from a incident management assignment in the southern part of the county. I couldn't hardly get here. As a matter of fact, I had a lot of trouble getting across the Platte River as well as the Big Thompson. But when I did get here, our firefighters were involved with rescues down along Brantner Road and 49th Street.
Thursday night is really when it started. The water was really starting to rise at that time, and there were some operations in place. The emergency personnel, which would have been the fire and police, really started to do some assessment of some different areas where there was some flooding. And the hardest hit was obviously the mobile home park off of 257 and Highway 60. So that quadrant right there was really getting the brunt of the issue. When I look back Thursday, you could see the water level rise, but we've seen the water level rise in the past 20 years we've lived there. I never gave it a thought that both of those rivers would really start to become on a rampage.
Frederick, Firestone, and Dacono area, the areas that were affected, there were several homes in Frederick that were flooded on the east side of I-25. So several of those neighborhoods were evacuated because either homes were taking on water or the roadways were flooded. Part of that was because of the banks on Boulder Creek had flooded out. St. Vrain River obviously had a lot of problems and it was flooded out.
We were quite frankly very concerned about amount of damage that would be done, number of people that would need to be evacuated. But as we were monitoring in communities upstream from us, we saw the impact being less and less and less, and our peak flows through Greeley were not that high at all. Once we recognized that and started hearing some of the damage in Evans, quite frankly, our attention really pushed more towards going to help Evans respond to the concerns that they were having.
On the very first day, the afternoon of the 13th, we were heavily involved with rescues out of the mobile home parks, as well as the rescues and helping people evacuate out of these neighborhoods just to our west here. We had a very large rush of water that came through this area here, through the park, through these neighborhoods over here, and through the mobile home parks, and did all the destruction that it did, and completely destroyed 208 mobile homes, severely damaged 66 single-family dwellings and duplexes, and then we had various amounts of other damage. We knew that our wastewater treatment plant had been taken out of service by the flood. We knew that we couldn't use it at that time, but we weren't able to actually get people on the site until Wednesday and Thursday of the next week. We had to impose a no flush order for about 14,000 of our residents here in Evans, mostly to the west of this area, all of the Evans Riverside neighborhood, which is the east side of town here, all the way out to 35th Avenue in West Evans. The next day, we were involved with helping people get as many of their belongings as they could. And I think for me, that was probably the most tragic thing that I saw, was people being able to get what few possessions they could get, carry them out through the floodwaters, and then move on with their lives someplace else, knowing that they would never be able to come back to the homes that they left.
Later on in the morning and that afternoon, it was pretty evident that supplies were going to be needed as well, because a little over 150 people were evacuated in the north section of town.
At one point in time, we had 160 roads that were closed and that were damaged. We had 202 homes destroyed, obviously along the river basins there. There was a lot of folks that were displaced. The number of folks sheltered was just amazing. The number of shelters that we had open. We had shelters down the south part of our county. We had shelters in Johnstown and Milliken, here in Greeley.
We're standing out on the side of our recreation center here in Greeley. It ended up that we did not have people evacuated from Greeley, but there were a bunch in Evans, and we also had a situation where in some of the places, maybe in Evans, where they would have evacuated people, they could not flush toilets and the like because their wastewater treatment plant had gone down. So we said, we'll go ahead and operate the center here in Greeley with our staff for the Evans residents. And that, quite frankly, it's just part of the neighborly type of thing that you do. We also send police officers to help in Evans as necessary. We had water and sewer employees that obviously got to work on how do we get their wastewater treatment plant up and running again. But we also had public works employees that were out helping to evacuate people, working on trying to shore up, move debris from areas that needed to be done, and then after the floods happened, start clearing debris out of roads and that type of thing so you could get to the point of repairing those roads. Basically doing the exact same things we've practiced and trained on. If they were in Greeley, we were just doing that down in Evans.
I think the overall thing that I look at is the teamwork that we had, not only with the county departments, but also our partner agencies, whether it be Red Cross or fire districts, personnel coming in and helping us work in the EOC.
You don't realize in a disaster how the community can come together, what kind of volunteers you have. Faith-based community, people like businesses and organizations giving shelter, giving food. One of the calls that was made from the county commissioners was to Noble Energy and Oil. They came back with 12 semi-truckloads when they could get it in here with supplies and water.
You know, it was really amazing here in Evans. After we went through the emergency operations portion, which was the first 3 days with the rescues and the evacuations and security and securing the wastewater treatment plant and dealing with the no flush problems that we had on the west side of town, once we got through all that, we started moving into the first phases of recovery. One of the big parts of that was we had a great outpouring of support from faith-based communities and nonprofits that were able to come in here to Evans from a nationwide basis, and even from some international relief organizations that came in, and they brought hundreds and hundreds of people, relief supplies, trucks, equipment, and they helped all the people in these neighborhoods clean out their homes and start the recovery process for themselves. Red Cross certainly was here, and they were a big help, as well as many other of the nonprofit organizations. So to see that amount of work go on, that many people, both locally here in the Evans and Greeley area, statewide, and also nationally, to come and help out folks here in Evans, it was very, very, very impressive.
The role that philanthropy played in the flood really, in my mind, came kind of in three sections. What I would call the immediate, which would be the first 48 hours. This kind of rallying of donors and this rallying of those nonprofit organizations, the faith-based community, and then I would call it relief, and that would be anywhere between that 48 hours and the next 3 to 6 months. And then the third would be the recovery phase. The partnership between the Community Foundation and United Way, in my mind, initially was set up to help with that relief phase. By that Saturday morning, the two presidents, CEOs, had connected and talked about how we were going to respond together, because we had donors that were already beginning to call us that morning. It's not about the agencies, it's about the victims, and so we're working together to make sure that we maximize resources. We know the need is going to be far beyond the generosity, because that's what happens in disasters. And so let's work together to maximize how we can help victims directly. We both agreed that we weren't going to take any administrative cost out of the fund, and so that 100% would go to help victims, and then we would kind of reassess. And so we have reassessed and decided to have the remainder of the funds go to the recovery effort.
So the Weld County Community Recovery Committee is actually often referred to as the long-term recovery group. We're focused more on individuals rather than infrastructure and roads because the county and the state have done such an amazing job. We really focus on helping people to be able to recover. We're really helping folks to find their new normal. Weld Recovers is actually active in a lot of different roles. We have 7 great case managers who are doing wonderful things for folks. They really take each individual's case and look at the need individually and help them to find the resources that are most appropriate for their given situation. While we are active in helping to fund some of the unmet needs, we're also very heavily involved in coordinating volunteer projects and construction projects. We help coordinate mold mitigation, and yes, even a year later, we're involved in coordinating debris removal. I'd like to say that one of our more significant successes is our House in a Box program. House in a Box is a collaboration between St. Vincent de Paul Society, Catholic Charities, and the United Way of Weld County. As you know, many families lost absolutely everything in the flood. As our case managers are able to identify families who meet that eligibility criteria, we're able to provide them with much of what they need to start a whole new household. We can provide them with brand new beds, a couch, a dining room table and 4 chairs. We can provide them pots and pans and dishes and glassware and silverware and kitchen and bathroom towels, even shower curtains. So far, we've been able to support over 90 families through their recovery by using our House in a Box program. I would also like to thank Judy Knapp of the Community Foundation and Janine Trustwell of the United Way for their leadership and willingness to collaborate at the early stages of our recovery. Those 2 incredible leaders set the tone for the success we're experiencing in Weld County.
We're still in the recovery process, and that's from an individual assistance point and a public assistance side. So roads that were damaged, a lot of those were repaired with temporary repairs, and now we're going through that process of getting those permanent repairs done on those roads. So there's a lot of construction work going on with our county departments, and not only within Weld County, but the other municipalities that are working on those roadways to get those repaired, get bridges fixed, get them updated or even improved based on the incident that took place. The other thing we look at is from an individual assistance side, there's still a lot of folks out there that need assistance based on the recovery from the flood. And so the Weld Recovers group is still working with them, helping to provide them the assistance that they need.
There is an enormous amount of need out there remaining. We use a needs assessment tool that established that we have about a $17 million total need. Now that was in the spring. That was with 203 individuals. We now have over 430 cases and just under $700,000 to meet those needs.
One of the things I'm really proud of, and I know the Community Foundation is proud of, is that from September to the end of December of 2013, there was over $1 million given directly to victims. We have this ongoing need, though, because there are still so many people that are in the long-term recovery.
Long-term recovery, even at this stage, is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And while we've had many successes so far, we still have a long way to go. Without continued support in our community, we'll not make it. But this is Weld County, and we'll get there.
I think the community's greatest moment for me is really what's happened in the last 6 months. Evans has always been a very community-oriented city, and sometimes unfortunately it takes a disaster like this to sometimes show how strong that can be. And I think that is something that impresses me every day when I talk to folks that are out here, the residents that moved back into their homes, the residents that are moving on with their lives in different ways, and certainly all the public agencies that are committed to making Evans a better place than it was before into the future.
I think one of the greatest moments that we've experienced is a desire of agencies throughout the community, from government agencies to faith-based agencies, to other 501c3 nonprofits who are willing to say that recovery is important to us. The people of Weld County deserve everything that we can possibly provide to them, and they're willing to do their part to make that happen.
There are probably hundreds of moments that demonstrate the strength of the people in Weld County and the organizations that exist. And I'm sure for every person you talk to, they have a different perspective. The fact that we still have so many people still at the table bringing together what resources they can bring to help the most people possible, to me is one of the most significant things about what this community's done.
One of the things that I think that really sticks out, and it's not the picture so much, but it's more the spirit of the community. And by that I mean the resiliency of people, the volunteerism. You start to see what happens. You don't want that to happen, but you need to try to capture that. You need to try to bottle it, and you need to try to just say, let's keep that going.
I've long talked about that the Greeley-Evans area has a barn-raising mentality, and I think the communities were founded along those lines. When you come and set up what you see as a utopian society on the high arid plains of Colorado, and you have blizzards that come in and things along those lines, the early settlers wouldn't have survived without making friendships with their neighbors and working together. I think that's in our DNA, and anytime an event like this flood comes up, it just allows us to get to our initial DNA. That's our greatest strength, is that at the end of the day, we are truly neighbors and we want to help one another succeed.
The Community Foundation is honored to be a part of a community where businesses, city and county officials, nonprofits, faith-based organizations, children, and countless volunteers came to support one another. Though the healing process will continue for years to come, we have a lot to be proud of, and we have learned how together we are stronger.